Open the damn door, you sick bastard! A violent kick blew open the hotel room door. I shot up, disoriented, head pounding like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it. Blinding flashes tore through the darkness. Cameras, phones, yelling voices all around me. He's trying to run! Get him! This pervert's making a break for it! Two burly security guards stormed in and slammed me down on the bed. I struggled, but my limbs felt like dead weight. Drugs. There had to be something in my system. He raped me. The voice was soft, trembling, drenched in sobs. Sarah Torres, my manager, was curled up in the corner chair, dress ripped, hair tangled, arms crossed tightly over her chest. She was crying so hard she could barely speak. But through her fingers, for the briefest flicker of a second, I saw it. Her lips curled into the faintest smirk. The smile of a demon. "No, she set me up!" I yelled. But a fist slammed into my gut, knocking the air out of my lungs. A flash drive landed beside me on the bed. "Security footage caught it all," said the HR director, her voice cold and flat. "You even took her dress off with your teeth. You're disgusting." I turned to look at Sarah, my throat burning with fury. How far had she planned this? A doctored video? Fake evidence? The crowd outside was roaring now. "Drag him out!" And then I saw her, Jenny, my girlfriend. She stood in the hallway, eyes red, lips trembling. She shook her head and turned away. There was no trial, no explanation, just a silent, brutal ending. As the guards dragged me out, I felt Sarah lean in and whisper, her voice like honey laced with venom. "You should have just said yes to that drink, Ethan." My name is Ethan Moore. I'm 32. I used to work as a strategy analyst at Emergent Systems, a mid-sized tech firm in downtown Seattle. I never had big dreams. I just wanted to work hard, make enough to marry Jenny, my college sweetheart from the University of Washington, and take care of my mom, who's diabetic and needs insulin every single day just to stay alive. But Sarah Torres destroyed all of that. Sarah, my direct manager, was the embodiment of beauty and brutality. Tall, sleek brunette hair, lips painted in perfect crimson, and a body that made every head in the conference room turn when she strutted in wearing her signature pencil skirts and heels. She rose to a senior leadership role in just 3 years, thanks to her manipulative charm and the way her mere presence could silence a room. From interns to VPs, the men at Emergent Systems were mesmerized by her, hypnotized when she crossed her long legs and smiled like she owned the air they breathed. But a few of us knew better. Behind that smile was a venomous snake. Sarah didn't tolerate rejection. I'd seen what happened to people who said no to her. One guy, Andrew, refused her invite to a casual dinner in Belltown. A week later, he was reassigned to a windowless maintenance office in the basement. Soon after, they let him go for underperformance. He left the city in shame. I thought I was being smart by keeping my distance. I always turned down her offers politely, always professional, never rude. But I didn't understand what that meant to someone like her. With Sarah, saying no was signing your own death warrant. It happened after the company's celebration party at a bar in Capitol Hill. She poured the drinks. "Just talking about your future, Ethan," she said, pouring a third, then a fourth glass of expensive Pinot Noir. That's the last thing I remember, her cold eyes gleaming in the dim bar light as we stepped into the hotel elevator. After that, it all went black. I woke up in a nightmare. Texts from her, screenshots, a carefully edited video, bruises on her neck. Every piece of evidence stacked perfectly against me. The company launched an internal investigation, but it was a joke, a kangaroo court with only one verdict in mind. Sarah sat across from me, eyes brimming with fake tears, spinning tales of pain and trauma. The board stared at me like I was filth. Within 48 hours, I lost everything. Jenny, my fiancée, slapped me and left after reading the headline in the Seattle Times. tech analyst accused of assaulting manager at five-star hotel. My mom called from our small neighborhood in Tacoma. Her voice trembled through the phone. "Ethan, did you really do it?" I couldn't answer. The neighbors started whispering in the hallways of my apartment building in First Hill. The whole world turned its back on me. But in the deepest pit of that hell, I made a promise. Sarah Torres would pay. I would clear my name. I would survive. And I would use the same ruthless, calculating darkness she wielded to drag her straight into the abyss she built for me. On the surface, Sarah Torres was everything a company could want: stunning, sharp, accomplished, and well-connected. But behind closed doors, especially for those like me who found themselves in her crosshairs, she wasn't a professional. She was a predator, and the office, just her hunting ground, where beauty, lust, and power were the only rules that mattered. I still remember the first time I was assigned to her team. She walked into the conference room wearing a curve-hugging dress that traced every inch of her body like it had been painted on. Every step she took was calculated to hijack a man's focus. Not a single guy in the room looked her in the eye, except me. And that look, not of desire, not of submission, but calm awareness, that was the moment I became her next target. I didn't know it then, but I just stepped into a game of life and death. Sarah had a ritual. Every Monday morning, she'd stroll past the desks of the male employees, cappuccino in hand, eyes lingering a bit longer on the ones who fit the mold. Those guys would soon find themselves in after-hours meetings, followed by sudden promotions, and then, just as suddenly, they'd vanish without a trace. There were rumors. One guy tried to cut her off, tried to pull away. His wife received an anonymous package, a hotel sex tape. Divorce followed. The guy changed states, changed his name, and no one ever heard from him again. I didn't want to believe it. Urban legends, I told myself, office gossip, until I got the email. Subject: ever wonder what it takes to move up? Sender: Sarah Torres. That's when it began. Not a crush, not flirtation, a strategy. One late afternoon, she asked me to stay back to discuss a high-priority project. Her office was dimly lit, smelled faintly of Chanel, and the blinds were drawn. "I've noticed how you work," she said, stepping closer, focused, reliable. Her hand landed softly on my shoulder. "You're the kind of guy who deserves more." I stood up instantly, instinct kicking in. "Sorry, I'm not comfortable with where this is going." She didn't get angry. In fact, she smiled, eyes sparkling like she'd just spotted a new toy that might take longer to break. "That's okay, Ethan. I like men who say no." After that, things changed. My calendar filled with pointless meetings. Projects I led were suddenly underperforming. I got left off recognition lists, even though the results were clearly mine. One coworker, Tyler, leaned in during a coffee break and whispered, "Careful, if you don't sleep with her, better get used to sleeping on the street." Still, I refused to believe it. I wanted to believe that competence was enough, that I could survive on merit, not surrender. I avoided her, buried myself in work, tried to outperform the sabotage. But that only made her more interested. Then, one day, HR called me in. They claimed an email had been sent from my account, an obscene message to a client. My internal access logs had been tampered with. Clearly, someone had hacked my profile. But I couldn't prove it, and I didn't need to guess who did it. I went straight to her office. "I don't know what game you're playing," I said, "but it ends now." She leaned against her desk, legs crossed, skirt riding high. She looked at me like a misbehaving puppy. "Game? I'm just trying to help you succeed. But if you're not interested, I won't force you." She put extra weight on that last word, force, then stepped closer, close enough to feel her breath on my ear. "But Ethan, you'll wish I did once you hear that team lead is opening up." I walked out. But the next day, a strange car followed me home. My personal inbox was flooded with explicit photos sent from an anonymous email. Someone was trying to smear me, frame me. I reported it, but the company turned it back on me. Why would these photos be in your inbox at all? That's when it hit me. No one was going to believe me. No one was going to save me. And then the trap snapped shut. A flawless, deadly symphony conducted by Sarah herself. She invited me for drinks after work, just to talk about growth opportunities, she said. Again, Pinot Noir. Again, her eyes under the low lights at the bar. The elevator ride. Darkness. I woke up, caged, drugged, filmed, and condemned. I wasn't Ethan the strategy analyst anymore. I was the prey, caught, gutted, and hung out to dry. But what predators always forget is this. Sometimes prey grows fangs. From the moment I woke up next to Sarah in that hotel room, my life started falling apart. Like someone peeling the skin off piece by piece, layer, agonizing layer. Reputation, love, family, career, all gone. The disciplinary hearing was held on the 15th floor, but it felt more like walking into a death chamber. Across the table sat 3 HR reps, a company lawyer, and Sarah herself. She wore a pristine white suit, her hair curled in soft waves, lips painted red like she'd had a full night's sleep, despite what she claimed was a traumatic assault. She spoke clearly, calmly, even with a touch of sorrow. "I agreed to meet Ethan to discuss work," she began. "But once we were at the hotel, he pressured me to drink and wouldn't let me leave." Her voice cracked, eyes shimmered like she was about to cry. I was scared. I didn't fight. I just froze. But I can't let this happen to someone else. Everyone turned to look at me like I was some kind of monster. I laughed, not out of amusement, but the kind of hollow, broken laugh that only comes when reality gets so twisted you can't even scream. No one asked for security footage. No one tested me for drugs. This company had already chosen a side, and clearly I was sitting on the wrong one. I was placed on administrative leave, pending further investigation, but everyone knew that meant I was done. People whispered behind my back. Some acted sympathetic. Others grinned when they thought I wasn't looking. "Never took him for a creep," someone muttered. I tried to find one person to hold on to. Jenny, my girlfriend of 4 years. That night, I came home trembling, praying she'd just hold me, hear me out. But she was standing in the kitchen, phone in hand, a news article on the screen. Prominent tech analyst accused of raping boss at 5-star hotel. Her voice shook as much as her hands. "Did you do it?" "No, it was a setup. She framed me." "Then why is there video? Why did she come forward? Why have you said nothing to the press?" I couldn't answer. How do you explain that someone weaponized sex and beauty like a scalpel? That the glamorous woman on the cover of a corporate brochure was a manipulative predator who used charm as camouflage? Jenny took off her engagement ring and set it on the counter. I can't be with someone I don't trust. And just like that, she left. A clean, final cut right through my heart. A week later, my job officially restructured me out. The email was vague. No one said the words, but the meaning was clear. People unfriended me on LinkedIn. My texts went unanswered. Even my mom called, voice cracking, "Ethan, why are people calling you a rapist on the Seattle community page?" I lied. "It's a misunderstanding. I'm filing a lawsuit." She sighed. "Come home, son. I don't need you to be successful. I just need you to be good." But I couldn't go back. Not like this. I rented a tiny room in Tacoma, cut ties with everyone. At night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Sarah's voice whispering in my ear. "Who do you think you are, saying no to me?" You'll be the perfect example of what happens to men who cross me. I don't have to kill you, I just have to make them believe me. I became a ghost. No friends, no job, no one. I washed dishes in a Chinese diner and slept on the floor in a freezing basement. But in that pit of shame, something inside me sparked. I couldn't let it end like this. I started digging. Facebook, Instagram, old articles, her LinkedIn. I cataloged every vague post, every suspicious connection. I dug into hidden Reddit threads where disgruntled tech workers whispered about a devil in heels with legs that could kill. One user stood out. GhostCoder78. I was a victim too, lost my whole career to her, but she'll pay. I'm watching her every move. Be careful, Sarah never walks alone. I messaged him. No reply. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something. My heartbeat. I wasn't the only one. I wasn't crazy. And I wasn't going to fade away in silence. I bought a second-hand laptop, wiped it clean, reinstalled the OS, started learning code from scratch, Python, JavaScript, networking. I devoured knowledge like it was oxygen. Every line I wrote was a vow. I wouldn't rest. I wouldn't stop. Not until Sarah Torres lost everything. I erased Ethan Moore from existence. No more analyst. No more accused. No more ghost of a man dragging shame behind him. I became Ryan Keller. I rented a grimy room in the industrial outskirts of Portland, Oregon, where nobody knew my name, and nobody gave a damn if I lived or died. By day, I worked tables at a Japanese diner run by a grumpy Korean owner who didn't ask questions, as long as I kept my head down and didn't touch the cash. By night, I lived in another world. The world of digital outcasts, of hackers, of darknet forums and ghost servers. A place where discarded people sharpen their skills like knives and wear their grudges like armor. I studied code like I was dissecting the tumor that had taken over my life. Every line I wrote felt like slicing into the infection, bleeding out the lies. I learned to spoof IPs, bypass two-factor authentication, and crawl into private networks like smoke under a locked door. Every cent I earned went into building a beast of a machine and locking down layers of high-end VPN proxies. One night, while writing a script to analyze login behavior on Emergent Systems' internal network, I got a message from GhostCoder78. Just one line. You want to bring her down? I've got the data. But you better prove you're worth it. I nearly jumped out of my chair. After weeks of silence, after sending him message after message into the void, he finally answered. I typed back instantly. Give me a shot, whatever it takes. He dropped a link to a hidden cloud server. Inside, over 3 gigabytes of data. Audio recordings, screenshots, chat logs between Sarah and none other than Daniel Grayson, the current CEO of Emergent Systems. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Sarah, if you sign off on that project, I'll wear that thing you like tonight. Daniel, what if I want you to skip straight to nothing? Sarah, just fire Ethan, and you'll have all of me, all night. But it wasn't just sex games and power plays. There were transaction logs, emails, a full paper trail linking Sarah to a quiet funneling of internal funds to offshore accounts. She wasn't just seducing her way to the top. She was laundering money right under their noses. My hands trembled. This was the key, the lever, the kill shot. But it wasn't enough to expose her anonymously. That would be too easy, too clean. I wanted her to feel it. I wanted the world to watch as every layer of charm and seduction was stripped away. Every smile, every bat of her lashes ripped to shreds in broad daylight. I had to go back to the company. But I couldn't walk in as the broken man they left behind. I needed a new identity, someone mysterious, valuable, irresistible. So I created a phantom startup, Centrix AI, an artificial intelligence firm specializing in behavioral analytics. I designed a sleek, polished site, bought a .ai domain, hired a few overseas freelancers to pose as team members. I forged fake growth charts, fake press blurbs, even a fake founder bio. Ryan Keller, former DARPA consultant, now the secret weapon behind next-gen AI platforms. Then I began reaching out to Emergent's leadership team, dropping breadcrumbs, white papers, case studies, hints at proprietary algorithms. 3 weeks later, my phone buzzed. "Mr. Keller, this is Rachel from Emergent's marketing team. We're incredibly impressed by Centrix. Would you be open to coming to Seattle for a meeting? We'd love to discuss a potential partnership." I smiled into the receiver, my voice low and calm. "I'd be happy to. Something tells me this meeting is going to change a lot of things." I bought a tailored suit, got a haircut, practiced my walk, my posture. The man in the mirror wasn't Ethan Moore anymore. He was Ryan Keller, composed, dangerous, and unrecognizable. The day I stepped into Emergent's lobby again, 7 months after they cast me out, I nearly broke down. People looked at me now with awe, with admiration. Sarah wasn't at that first meeting, but she would be. And when she walked through that door, it would be a reunion no one could see coming. She walked into the conference room right as I was presenting the Centrix AI demo, and for one split second, Sarah Torres froze like stone hit with a sledgehammer. But less than half a second later, she smiled. Her eyes flicked across me like I was just another new face in a sea of business partners. She didn't recognize me. And why would she? I was no longer the disheveled guy in an ill-fitted suit who couldn't make eye contact. I was Ryan Keller now. Sharp suit, hard stare, calm voice, and the confident silence of someone who holds all the cards. "I'm Sarah," she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. Her nails were blood red. "I head up internal strategy." I took her hand, firm grip, not too long, but just long enough for her skin to feel the chill beneath mine. "Ryan, pleasure to meet you." My voice was steady. My eyes didn't blink. She pulled her hand back quickly, like something cold had slithered up her spine. From that moment on, I was officially Emergent Systems' new strategic partner. Sarah, either by design or sick twist of fate, was assigned to work with me directly on evaluating the AI integration. I knew why. She still thought it was the same old game: seduction, manipulation, control. She didn't recognize me because in her mind, Ethan Moore was dead, a nobody, an insect she'd crushed and tossed away like trash. So when I showed up wearing a new name, a new face, and a new power, she didn't flinch. And all I could think was, this time, who's the hunter? In the following meetings, Sarah amped up the charm. Tighter blouses, deeper necklines, perfume that lingered long after she walked out of the room. She brushed my arm when pointing at spreadsheets, leaned in close when discussing metrics. "You know, Mr. Keller, I'm impressed by how you command the room," she said once, her voice low, fingers grazing my sleeve. "It's very masculine." I let my eyes fall, slowly, trailing down her neckline, then up to her lips. "You know," I replied, "women often misjudge the man sitting across from them." She paused, then smiled coyly. "I happen to like surprises." She thought she was seducing me. I let her believe it. Within a week, I'd installed spyware on her personal laptop via a sleek USB gift from Centrix, part of a welcome package for select collaborators. She plugged it in, downloaded the fake brochure, and unknowingly opened her digital front door wide. I had everything: emails, messages, even her private meeting schedule with CEO Daniel Grayson. And guess what? Sarah and Daniel were still entangled, not just sexually, but financially. They were orchestrating a shell project meant to bleed millions from Emergent, rerouting funds through an offshore company in Belize. Same tricks. Only now, the stakes were higher. They weren't just ruining people, they were stealing a fortune. I launched my counterattack. Step 1. I anonymously sent partial evidence of their embezzlement scheme to the 3 largest shareholders at Emergent, along with one cryptic text thread between Sarah and Daniel. The wording was vague, just enough to raise suspicion. Step 2. I invited Sarah to dinner at a high-end Italian restaurant, posing as a potential investor looking for personal advisory. She showed up in a tight black dress, backless, red lipstick, and perfume that reeked of expensive desperation. "We really should work more closely together, Ryan," she whispered over a glass of Chianti. I leaned in, letting my breath warm her skin. "I think we could cause a spectacular explosion." She licked her lips, leaned closer. "As long as you know how to keep your mouth shut." I took her hand across the table, slowly pulling it toward me. "You remind me of someone I used to know. She liked controlling men with sex, too." She blinked. Her smile flickered. I leaned in and whispered in her ear. "Her name was Sarah Torres, and I'm Ethan Moore." She jerked her hand away like I'd poured acid on her skin, backed up so fast her chair nearly toppled. Her face turned ghost white. What did you just say?" I topped off her wine, watching her as if I was savoring every terrified second. "I didn't die, Sarah. I survived. And you picked the wrong man." She started to stand, but I grabbed her wrist, not gentle this time. "I've got everything. Your texts, your bank trails, even that video of you straddling Daniel in his office wearing that red dress." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "I haven't released anything yet, because I wanted you to know what it feels like, to be controlled, to feel powerless." Her shoulders sagged, the fire in her eyes gone. No smug smile, no flirting. Just raw fear. The kind that comes when a predator finally realizes she's prey. I whispered one last time. "The game's just begun. You once trapped me with sex. Now I'll trap you with your entire life." Then I walked out, leaving her trembling in the ruins of her own illusion. I went home, opened my laptop, and typed a message to Emergent CEO Daniel Grayson. "I have a video and a proposal. Resign quietly or go public. Your move." 9 a.m. The top floor conference room of Emergent Systems was packed wall to wall. Major shareholders, company lawyers, journalists invited under the pretense of attending a strategic AI partnership with Centrix. None of them knew they were about to witness one of the most brutal unveilings in Seattle tech history. I walked in wearing a black suit, silver-gray tie, no emotion on my face, just a small silver USB drive in my hand, a blade disguised as a gift. Sarah arrived minutes later, walking fast. Her face was tight, lips pale, her usual confidence strained behind a high ponytail meant to hide the panic in her eyes. Daniel Grayson, CEO, partner in crime, and the man who helped bury me, trailed behind her, his eyes flicking toward me with suspicion. The meeting began. I launched into the presentation like it was any other tech demo. Slide 1, the Centrix AI logo. Slide 2, fake user growth charts I'd fabricated months ago. Then Slide 3 never came. The screen went black. And then the video started. A high-angle camera captured a room, familiar room. A man sat in an office chair. A woman in a red dress climbed into his lap. She moaned softly, began unbuttoning his shirt, whispered in his ear, "Daniel, if you sign it, tonight we don't even need a condom." The entire room fell silent. Sarah shot up from her seat, shouting, "Turn that off! Who played that?" No one moved. The projector was mine now. I'd hijacked the controls days ago. I walked calmly to the panel, inserted a second USB. The next slide appeared. A spreadsheet. Bank accounts registered in Belize under shell companies. Wire transfers from Emergent's Internal Development Fund. I turned to face them. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Ethan Moore. I was fired from this company under a false accusation of rape. Today, I'm not here for personal justice. I'm here to expose two people who are poisoning this company's ethics, finances, and reputation." Daniel's face drained of color. He slammed the table. "Security, get him out of here!" But no one moved. A woman stood up. Helen Parks, one of the largest shareholders. "No one touches him. We're going to hear him out." I opened the folder evidence_full.zip. Screenshot after screenshot lit up the screen. Emails from Sarah to Daniel about massaging documents. Fake calendar events for meetings that never happened. Messages coordinating offshore fund siphoning, complete with Daniel's digital signature. Then I walked over to Sarah. I placed a printed photo in front of her. A still image. Me, unconscious on a hotel bed. Sarah, smiling at the hidden camera. "Remember this? The trap you set? You smiled, thinking you'd won. Turns out you recorded your own undoing." She was trembling. Daniel collapsed in his chair, drenched in sweat. Gasps filled the room, whispers, furious scribbling. A lawyer from the shareholder side walked up and gently took the USB from my hand. "We'll be launching an immediate internal investigation." I nodded, then looked Sarah dead in the eye. She was clawing the armrest of her chair, eyes bloodshot, either from panic or fury. I leaned in, just enough for her to hear. "You used my dignity to climb to the top. I used the truth to drag you back to hell." 3 hours later, the press release went out. Emergent Systems launches ethics investigation into 2 senior executives. Sarah Torres and Daniel Grayson suspended pending inquiry. That same evening, Sarah was taken into custody. Charges: abuse of power, unlawful distribution of sexual content, and aiding in financial fraud. Police recovered forged documents from her personal hard drive, evidence she'd stockpiled to blackmail others. She never realized the very trap she built for others would be the noose around her own neck. Daniel Grayson resigned. A fast-track court hearing was scheduled within 90 days. The media exploded. Sex tape scandal destroys Techstar's career. From seduction to scandal, Emergent Systems in turmoil. Ethan Moore, from fallen man to executioner. I stood outside Emergent's headquarters that evening, watching the logo gleam under the setting sun. I didn't cry, I didn't smile. I just felt something rare. I'd survived. And, for the first time, I was choosing what came next. But it wasn't over. Inside, behind those glass walls, a closed-door meeting was underway. Helen Parks, Emergent's most powerful shareholder, had made me an offer. Come back, as acting CEO. And I thought, now, it's time to take the throne. 2 months after the day Sarah and Daniel fell from grace, I sat in the top office of Emergent Systems, the one Daniel once called his personal kingdom. Now, it was mine. My name, Ethan Moore, was officially announced as interim CEO by the board of directors. Helen Parks, the company's largest shareholder, had personally signed the appointment, backed by over 80% of the voting shares. The name once splashed across tabloids as the accused rapist now blazed across front pages as the man who brought justice back to tech. The day I returned to the office, people avoided my eyes. Some of the same faces who used to laugh behind my back now whispered, "Good morning, sir," like I was a ghost they were afraid to touch. I didn't need their apologies. My existence here was already the loudest revenge. Sarah Torres was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison, distribution of unlawful sexual content, internal manipulation, and aiding international money laundering. She cried in court. Not a single person stood up for her. The press published side-by-side images. One, Sarah in an orange jumpsuit, hair tangled, face bare, eyes hollow. The other, her in a red dress perched on Daniel's lap, wine in hand, eyes blazing with seduction. No one ever imagined the man she once destroyed would be the one to bury her entire past. Daniel Grayson got 5 years probation, barred from holding any executive position in a public company. He lost everything: his reputation, his marriage, and any chance of redemption. He slipped into obscurity, declining every interview. A fallen empire doesn't always collapse with noise. Sometimes it crumbles in silence. But for an entire industry, this was a siren. No amount of charm can cover up rot. I walked into the CEO office not as someone handed the throne, but as someone who had to drag it from the wreckage left by those who tried to erase me. On my first day, I sent one company-wide email. Just one line. If you once bowed to corruption, stand up now. Justice is back. I revived the Tech Vision contest I'd proposed a year ago, back when it was mocked and buried by the old leadership. Now, dozens of young engineers pitched wild, brilliant ideas once dismissed as too ambitious. I approved over $2 million in seed funding for the top 5 projects, personally mentoring each team. A young employee named Mia came to see me, her voice shaking. "I used to think you were a monster. I'm ashamed I believed the rumors." I smiled. "Don't be ashamed for believing a lie. Just be brave enough to believe in the truth again." I didn't forget my mother. The day I drove back to her house, she opened the door and just stared at me for a few seconds, then pulled me into the kind of hug that only a mother can give. She'd lost weight, her eyes were tired, but her face lit up when she saw I was okay. "They said you won, right?" she whispered. I smiled. "No, Mom, I didn't win. I just took back what was mine." I paid off her mortgage, bought back the old house, and had it fully restored. She replanted the garden by the porch and said, "Life can bloom again now." I'm still me, but the version I never dared to imagine becoming. I carry no hate. I don't need anyone to kneel and say sorry. I just need the world to understand. A man can be destroyed, but if he still believes in himself, he can rise stronger than anything that tried to bury him. On my desk, I keep only one photo. Me in a faded blue shirt, sitting in HR with a broken stare as Sarah read out the accusation. Not to relive the pain, but to never forget where I came from. And if anyone ever asks me, "If you could go back, would you avoid Sarah?" I'd say, no. Because of her, I learned I was never just an employee. I am the man who stood back up in hell and built a throne from the ashes of the fire that was meant to burn me. My name is Ethan Moore. I am the CEO of Emergent Systems. Once the victim, now the one rewriting the rules. She stripped to claim power, but I stripped away lies and ended the game for good.